There we go. Hey guys, welcome to the MARZ stream. This is Jay, and today I'm hosting the stream by myself. So we're gonna do some Blender, my favorite. Well, I think last time we did a little short like introduction to sculpting in Blender, but I realized that I guess maybe going over some of the basics would be a better intro for Blender. So I might edit that one and repost it after it's been edited. We'll see. I'd like to go back and edit a bunch of these into more easily digestible videos, but because they do get quite long. So I'm going to keep this one a little shorter, I think. Probably do about an hour. So yeah, hopefully you can hear me okay. Let me bring my mic up just a little bit. Testing 1 2, testing. Yeah, sweet. Okay. I want to get I forgot to open my chat. I've been running all over the place today, so where do we want? View and docs and chat. There we go. Now I can see that there, and okay, cool. So yeah, let's get right into this. So I'll do screen. And there we go. Cool. So I don't know if I'm gonna keep my video on or not. I think I might have to go back into this to change it. I guess I will for now in this intro part. Let's see, maybe I'll move myself over here. Whoops, not that. OBS updated recently and added the Control Z feature, which was for some reason not available until a few weeks ago, which is just crazy to me. There we go. That's a better spot. So I can't remember what all I went over in the first kind of sculpting overview of Blender, but we'll just kind of start from the beginning here. I don't have my tablet hooked up, so all the stuff we're gonna do is more focused on the basics and getting around the user interface and stuff like that. So when you first open Blender, of course, you're greeted with the welcome screen, and you can find your recent files and things like that, or start a new type of file. These are a few different like preset file types. But we're just gonna click off, and we're presented with our 3D view here. And I know last time I talked about turning on the screen sharing, like the key display. Let me find that. Oh, there's the stream. See if I can remember how to set that up so you guys can see that. I should have done that beforehand. Blender key display. I'm not actually Screencast. That's what it is. Screencast keys. I'm pretty sure there's a pretty easy way to do it. I just don't remember where the setting was. Mode is an add-on. Okay, I guess I'll show you that. So under edit and preferences, so Blender is an open source program. That means that anybody can get the source code to the actual program and make things for it and build add-ons or whatever, whatever they might need. So the great thing about that is that there's a ton of add-ons. These are just like some of them. These are just the ones that come like with Blender. They're not necessarily installed to start with, but they're there. So the one we want is the Screencast Keys, and what we could do is come all the way back up and look that up, and it doesn't look like it's actually on here, so we might have to download it. I could have swore that it was one of the base ones, but maybe not. It's pretty easy to install add-ons though. I maybe will do that in a different tutorial, even though I'm doing that here, if I can actually find the correct download button. Go to File. Oh goodness, where is it at? Screencast Keys, download and install. Oh, release page. Here we go. We want the zip. We should be able to just navigate to install and downloads. There we go. Easy as that. There it is. Just downloaded a zip file and can toggle it on, and it should work by default. I don't think I have to turn anything on. Let's see. It's on now. Let's go back in there. Preferences. Sorry if this is boring. I'll get to the good stuff here in a second. Configuration. There's probably a way to toggle it. Oh. Okay, sidebar. So hitting N on the keyboard brings up our sidebar. There it is. Screencast keys. Get event aggressively. Is that what we need to turn on? I'm not quite sure. This looks like just settings for it. To actually toggle it on, I'm not quite sure. I've seen other used it myself, but I figured it'd be good to have it on here. I only think about it like while I'm doing, starting to do these tutorials. I don't think about it beforehand. Let's see, there's a quick YouTube video. Let's see if this shows me how to turn it on. Oh, I just was not using my eyes. There's a button, there's a checkbox. Keys? There they are. Look there. Okay, cool. So you can see that I'm like holding my middle mouse button, that I'm clicking left and right, and then WASD. Kind of see him down there. Oh, well, my face is in the way. Okay, bye-bye face. Oops. There we go. There, okay, cool. Now you can see it. So down there in the left-hand corner, you can see holding Shift or Control. Sweet, okay. I don't know how well that comes across on stream. Hopefully okay. But can I make this bigger? Oh, I sure can. Let's turn the shadow off. Where's the shadow? On the keys? Oh, I see. They have little. Okay, there we go. Sweet. Awesome. Okay, so where were we? So we opened a new project here. I didn't really do anything. I just kind of was pressing buttons. So when you first open Blender, this is what you're gonna see. You'll basically see a cube. So this is an object here that for some reason I cannot select. There we go. See our cube, and we've got a light up here, and then we've got a camera. So that's the basics of just like the starting screen. You can move your orbit around by holding middle mouse button. Holding Shift and middle mouse button will kind of pan around. Let's see, what else is there? Zooming, of course, scroll wheel. So it's definitely not very easy to do Blender stuff with a mouse. I would not recommend it. How do I make? I do want to have my video on. I'll just make it smaller. I'll be teeny tiny in the corner here. Oop, there we go. Some people actually, you know what I can do? You know what the real Blender pros do? We can add another window down here, and then I can move this over here. That way I'm not actually taking up anything important. Sweet. Okay. There we go. Look at that. Okay. So, where was I? Basic scene. So, navigation. Yeah. Scroll wheel to move around, zooming in and out. We can go into our, we can actually see from different perspectives. Up here in the very top, I'm going to point out my screen like you can see it. Top left-hand corner, we have, it tells you exactly where you're looking. So if we hit our numpad keys on the keyboard, you can see that I'm in front orthographic. Means I'm looking at the front of the object, and right, of course, is a box, so it's kind of hard to tell. But 1 on the keyboard, 3 on the keyboard is right. I think 7 is top, bottom for 9, and then doesn't look like 4. Oh, I guess they do. They spin it around. I don't usually use these. It's usually just like front and right, and sometimes the top-down view. So, all of those are useful. And then if we want to go into camera view and actually like look through the perspective of what our camera here sees, 0 on the keyboard. And so what the camera sees is actually what's going to be rendered by the computer. So if we hit F12 here, you see another window will come up, and there's our cube in all its glory, all rendered with shadows and everything. It's beautiful. First Blender render. Super exciting. Let's make something a little more exciting, I guess. So yeah, as you're in this scene right now, we're in what's called object mode for this object. So what we can do is we can take this cube and we can move it around. What I did was I hit G for grab. It's a good way to remember it. You can also use the controls over here, but I always think that it's a good habit to get into using the hotkeys, because it's a lot more you can really get it's a quicker workflow. Is that the right word? Workflow? I don't know. I'm all over the place today. G for grab, S for scale. So you can scale your object up and down. And there's another one, R for rotate. R rotates based on where your camera is. It's a good thing to keep in mind, depending on your perspective, where I've kind of rotated. Not this camera, but where your actual like viewport is, where you're actually looking. That's what affects the just pressing one time on the R key will rotate in whatever way that you're looking. So say we want to undo this, and we want to just rotate our box this way on this axis. You can do that by going into the top-down view. You could also, so for each of these, you can also add to that hotkey, I guess you could say. So hitting G, and then say hitting X, for instance, which is up and down in Blender. Some programs do it different. Some other 3D applications, but in Blender, Z is up and down. So again, hitting G to grab it, and then hitting Z right after that will lock it to that axis. So now I can only move it up and down. So say I wanted to like line this up with the grid, which is say my floor. I can come in here and I can see that this is the X axis is red. So grab X, I can move it along the X axis, and Z again is up and down. So I can line this up right with the red, and then it will be perfectly on the grid here, which is like our floor. Although it doesn't actually render as a floor. So if I go back into my camera, there's really nothing here. It's just empty space. It looks gray because our world is gray. It's a very sad world right now, but we can fix that later. So the grabbing on different axes, so you have, this is green is Y, X is red, and Z is blue. We can also do all this other all the other translations in all the different axes as well. So we can hit S and then Z, and then we can actually scale it on the Z axis. So now we're flattening it out. So here's a nice little plane, and we can put that back on the floor. So now we have a plane. We could just grab it and scale it up all the way. We can scale it just on the X. It might make more sense if we go here real quick. I'll show you what I'm doing in a bit. We want to so these are other functions that we can use. Why is that one not working? Object, clear. There it goes. Alt R. Clear. Yeah. Okay. So what we just did essentially was reset. So all these, you can actually see the numbers over here. We reset all these to 0. You can also just come in here and 0 all these out. So 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab. Scale is the only one that stays at 1 because if your scale was 0, it is essentially non-existent. So you can see here, oop, no more cube because the scale is infinitely 0. There just does not exist anymore. So the only one that stays at 1 is scale. So everything else should be zeroed out. So now if I scale and I just do on the X, you can see better that it actually is just like scaling that way. And then we can scale on the Y and essentially make our little plane again. We just went the long way around. So yeah, that's the basics of translating stuff. Same applies for rotate. So I can rotate just on the Y-axis and the X. Oops, wrong button. X. And rotate on the Z. So that was doing the same thing from the top-down camera. Yeah, well, that's the basics of that. Maybe we'll keep this plane here for our ground. Now, if we go in here and render this, you'll see that it's just a big plane. Looks the same as our camera does. Not too exciting. But we can use this as our floor. So for objects like these, the camera and the light, these don't scale. You can move them. This particular light you can't rotate. All you can really do is move it. This is what's called a point light, and the point light essentially just spits out light in every direction. It doesn't have any directionality to it. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's just like a light bulb. It just shines wherever it's at. So we can just leave it where it was. We can take our camera. Maybe we want to move our camera. The camera does, however, move. You can scale it up too, but it doesn't actually do anything. If we look here, oops, we just scaled it plane. Scaling the camera doesn't do anything. It's always going to be the same view, no matter how much you scale it. The scale is pretty much all just for visual representation, I guess. But it's good to keep it at a 1 scale. But you can see our other rotations here. We can actually rotate it on the Z or whatever else, and it will move around, and our camera angle will be different. We can also grab it while we're in this view, and our camera or our viewport will move with it, so we can reposition our shot like so. This isn't necessarily the best way to set up your camera, but we'll get into that later. Let's make ourselves a little scene here first. So say, okay, here's our plane. Say we want to put a chair on this plane and render out, make some nice furniture for our little scene here. Actually, there was one more thing on the numpad that I forgot to mention. The period key is actually like a focus. You can see there that when I was like trying to spin, it's like if you pan your camera, it's gonna kind of spin in a weird spot. Like there's no real visual representation of what it spins around or what it orbits around. But to lock it onto an object, pressing period on your keyboard will do just that. And now when I orbit around something, it will orbit around that object. Say I was like super zoomed in, like this is ridiculously zoomed in. Instead of having to like zoom all the way back out and reposition my shot wherever I was, I can just hit period again and it resets the view. Super useful because it's very easy to get lost, because I could be like under here and I can turn this around and I could spin around and be like like this is actually upside down. This is not, this is underneath our plane. You can see that our light and stuff are on the other side. Somehow I've managed to look at the underside of this plane, but if hitting period, oh, well, I guess that didn't really position us back up, but I can easily, you know, rotate back to the correct orientation here. So yeah, let's make some, let's make some furniture, I guess. Sorry, I thought I heard something. So let's see, we've got our plane here. We want to add a chair. So what we're going to do is actually add another object to the scene. And so we can easily do that by either coming up to here to this add menu or hitting the shortcut Shift A for add. And then you get a whole bunch of different things. We're going to mostly just be focusing in the meshes for now. So anything that's like a physical thing that's rendered in your scene is a mesh. Whether that be a character, you know, a chair, a table, anything like that, any surface is a mesh. So we want to add a mesh, and let's start with a cube. So now we have another cube along with our other cube. Now we can put this here, and then what we can do is come into our camera. I'll bring it back over here. Gotta make sure it's selected. Figure out where we are. Like I said, this is not the easiest way to move the camera around. Might as well show you that now. How I like to do it is I use View. There, I don't think there by default there's a shortcut for this, but I'll show you how you can add a shortcut. I like to use the fly navigation. This one's okay. That, or I actually think probably the walk navigation is a little more intuitive. It's kind of like a video game. You use WASD to move around, and you can just look like a first person game. You have, you know, your mouse is your look control. You can hold Shift to speed up, and you can really just kind of position your camera, and then you click, and then it's set, and that's it. Now we can render this, and you can see that our cube actually has shadow now. So it's actually sitting on this plane and casting a shadow on the other cube. So our light is over here and it's casting that shadow. One really cool, whoops, can't minimize everything. There we go. Let's see. One really cool thing is that we can actually see that shadow and all that stuff live if we want to. So up here in our viewport, we have a few different options. This one is a wireframe. So you get just the lines of the different faces of the object or the mesh. Can be really useful if you have, you know, say we had, I'm going to duplicate this cube. Say we had this cube inside another cube. In this mode, I can't even see that cube really. Like it's there, but I can't see it. So in wireframe mode, now you can actually see, oops. Now you can actually see the cube inside the other cube. So it has some really good uses. We might use it a little later, and I'll show you some good uses for this wireframe mode. So then we have our viewport shading, which is just kind of a solid flat shading. We have a material view, which we haven't done any material stuff yet, but essentially this just shows you the material with no lights. And then our last one is the viewport shading that's actually like a rendered view. Oh, so I see. Viewport shading, solid, material preview, and the rendered view. So the rendered view combines our materials with our actual lights in our scene. So this is pretty close to what we'll actually see when we render. So this is our, let's see if I can get both of these lined up here. Zoom out. So like this is the, you know, this is the actual live viewport, and then this is our render. So it's really, really close to what is actually rendered. So we can move things around in real time. So if we grab our light over here, and I know you can't see it in this view, but if we hit G, even though we have it we selected it over here in the hierarchy, you can see our cube, our floor here. Or I guess this is probably, oh, that's our main cube. Did I turn off? Oh no, I didn't. Okay. And this is our floor. And then we grab our light. You can actually see when I move this light around, it changed the shadows on the object here. So like our cube isn't quite on the ground. So you can grab it and see, move it until those shadows go away. There we go. Now we have a light, and we can move it to the other side if we wanted to. So it casts shadows this way. Shadows are getting a little weird. We can fix that. We can add some quality to it. This is by default, the shadows aren't. They're not the best. We can actually improve the shadows quite a bit. You see some weird artifacting, but there's ways that we can fix that. But for the basics, this is pretty awesome to be able to just move our light around and light our scene. So I guess while we have this set up, we can actually go look at the other kinds of lights. If we go down, so this is our tool, I guess our toolbar essentially. Think of it like all your settings for your selected object. This does change based on what you're selecting. So you can see if I select the cube here, let me go back into solid view so we can actually see. I must have, oh, there we go. I did have the options set up or selected. So you can see what I'm selecting by the yellow border. If I have my light selected, you can see that it's different than if I have my cube selected. Because this is a mesh, it has a few different options, and because this is a light, it has fewer, but a weird one that the cube doesn't have. So with the cube, with the light selected, we can go to our little green light bulb down here, actually turn off shadows if we wanted, so it doesn't cast any shadows, but it still lights things up. We can turn the power of this light bulb up. So say you wanted like a 20 watt light bulb, that should be pretty accurate to what a 20 watt light bulb looks like. Change the color. So there's a full RGB light. You can actually see the color of the light change, which is super awesome. You can make a whole bunch of these. I can shift D to duplicate objects, and that works for everything. I can change this one to like a blue. Now we've already got a cool scene going on. Now if we rendered this, kind of a neat little light show going on. You can add really quick. You can add some cool looking, make a cool looking scene just with the lights. So let's undo that and set our lights back to normal. There we go. We bring our power back up again so we get better shadows. Of course, the stronger the light source is, the harsher the shadows will be. You can actually tell here as we go down and as it sort of figures out everything. It's oh, thanks. Yeah, it was that was an interesting one. The screenwriting was fun. I always loved talking about it, even if it was more of a, kind of a less technical and more I don't know, yeah, more of a talk show kind of thing. I think that's sort of where our streams have kind of led to, is just more of a talk show aesthetic, or a podcast kind of thing. I think that works for us. It's nice to, especially with having Corey on the show, and us being able to kind of like cross-reference between our different fields is always really neat. One of these days I'll have to do a Blender demonstration with him. Maybe have him give some suggestions to what I should make, and see how fast we can create a scene of something that he suggests. I think that would be pretty cool. Maybe doing some musical instrument or something. I don't think I've ever tried to model anything like that. That would be pretty fun. I'll have to bring that up to him. Maybe we'll do that in the future. So let's see. Yeah, so we got our light. We can bring the power back up, and then up here in the very top row, And actually, thanks. Yeah, not the yeah. You know, it's getting into the nitty gritty of all that stuff is hard when you don't really have a a solid like a project to demonstrate, I guess. If we were to take a screenplay and maybe talk about parts of it that we liked and parts that we didn't, and more of the technical aspects of it, because it is art. At the end of the day, there's you kind of learn the rules, and then but it's more about getting the story out there. I think I realized that partway through that I'm like, the technical stuff is good to know, but as long as you can get your ideas out on paper, that's like the most crucial part. So, and yeah, it's the same with this stuff. You've got an idea for something. I love this medium. I love the 3D art. I think it's a really cool way to kind of visualize things. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's about telling a story. It really is. That's what it's all about. And you should be, the structure and all that sort of stuff, just like, is second to the actual process of creating and telling a story. So, it's definitely, I do, I'm not just totally an artist because I love the technical side of things, the technology behind these sorts of art forms, and so it's fun for me to get into the technical like nitty gritty of stuff and like know how things work, know how cameras work, know how things in this sort of in this art form, because everything I do is digital. So, and that kind of stems over into, of course, writing. Screenwriting was around long before there was much digital art going on besides film. Well, even that was analog at the time. So it's really, I don't think, I'm trying to think what would have been digital. Everything was pretty much analog at that time. But kind of seeing how that same format that was developed so long ago is still used in a digital world, it's kind of carried over, which is really cool. There's a lot of history there, for sure. Whereas like stuff like this is fairly new compared to inaccessible, being this accessible to everyone. Blender being a free program, not but 20 years ago, there was no way that anybody could ever have imagined being able to do this on a home computer, just and then to stream it out to a bunch of people at the same time. Like, it's just, nobody ever thought that would be possible. So it's pretty amazing just how short, and how short of a time that we've come to it, how short, or how how short that time was, to bring us to this point where we can do stuff like this. So it's really cool. Just like all this just this like real-time rendering, this right here is just amazing. Like, this was not possible 20 years ago. So what I did was I changed here. You can actually change these types of lights. So right now it was a point, or here it was a point light. So, one spot. And then I can switch it to a sun. Of course, our sun, I don't know strength wise what this is, but it keeps the wattage. So 1,000 whatever these are very bright. So, cause they're not watts anymore, they're something else. But you can see now this light is very directional, and probably the most useful and the most, I guess, straightforward lights are the sun lights. This allows you to like cast essentially an endless light source from one point in the sky. Unlike the point light that sort of just illuminates a space around it, the sunlight is actually, like the sun, it's a directional light that casts a shadow, and is you know, it doesn't really have a point in space necessarily. You can see that like when I grab this and move it around, it's not affecting anything. Only when I rotate it does it actually change how the shadows are cast. So I can bring this back to 1, which is a nice yeah, definitely. That is a very bright sun, and I imagine it's much. I wonder if there is actually there probably is a calculation for how. Let's see. I wonder if anybody's ever done this. I'm sure they have. How watts is I was gonna say a sun, but I guess there's. Oh. Oh, wow. At any moment, the sun emits about 3.8 times 10 to the 26th power. So add 24 zeros to the end of that number. Yeah, that's a lot of zeros. Yeah, definitely. What is the wattage of the sun? Oh, it doesn't really have a wattage, but it is. I guess it does. It's measurable, but it's I think. Yeah. Oh, you want to see the number? How would I type out this number? Where's my notepad here? View, zoom in. Control plus. You ready? This is how many watts the sun is. I don't know how they do that math, but I'm definitely not a. Although I love technical things and technology, I'm not a math person. That's where I draw the line. But that is the number. So of course, you know, it would be all. Oops, I got rid of a 0. That would not be accurate. Can anybody read that? Yeah. So I don't need to save that number. I think Blender might break if I plug that number in. So we have an angle here, and honestly, I'm not quite sure what this does, to be quite honest. I don't usually use this. What is it, at 11? Doesn't seem to change all too much. But typically I just, so yeah, you can rotate the sun, and that just affects where your shadows are. You can also change the color just like everything else, so you can make your whole scene a different color. You know, usually I like to give this, since the sun is kind of, you know, depending on your preference, give it like a slight, maybe this would be easier to add. Let's see. We could change our color type so we can actually maybe add a little bit of, just like a tiny bit of blue or something like that, or a little bit of orange, depending on your preference. Of course, in 3D, you can completely control every light source, including the sun. So it's pretty cool. But let's see. Let me just set this back. Oh, not that way. There we go. We have a few different lights over here. So we got the sunlight and then a spotlight, which is essentially what it sounds like. This one is wattage, just like the point light. But this one casts a shadow in more of a cone. I guess you can actually see the cone. You can visualize it here. It can be a pretty cool effect, especially when you animate these, because you can sort of get that that look of, like, you know, say you're in a dark hallway here. We have a few lights that go across, like down the hallway. You can set them up and do a neat little, whoops, I want to scale the Y, almost like a runway for our cube here. You can see the actually casting multiple shadows from each light. So it's very cool. Cool effect. Point lights are neat. I don't use them all too often, but they definitely have their uses for sure. I think our last light is our area light, which the area light is kind of like the sunlight in a way. It's very small right now, but it actually it actually casts light in a like shape, I guess you could say. Typically it's a square like this. So say you had like let's do a quick I want to reset my transforms for this object mode. So this tab has, you can actually see our controls for this. Reset these all to 0. Grab it, and there it is. So, you know, say if you had a window or something, a very tall window, you can rotate this, and you can actually type when you rotate and move things. You can add in a certain amount to rotate. So say, you know, here we are looking at our scene from the side. So here's the use of the right orthographic. You can see, you know, our light here is straight up and down because I rotated it exactly 90 degrees. So say I wanted to rotate it back so it's facing down again, I can hit R when I'm in this view. Hit R and I can type 90 and then it flips down again. So that's the way to be very precise. And you can see like this would be -90 and it will flip up so that it's facing straight up and down. So say if we built a window here, I'm gonna do this real quick. There's a little bit easier way to do this, but we'll do it quickly if I can figure out the right things here. Scale our window up. Grab a few of these. Shift D. Oops. X. Obviously, you probably build your you probably build your window first and then add in and then add in the box so that you're not like building your window to your box light. But so like here's a window. I don't know how that managed to get rotated. Front view, rotate 90 degrees. Grab it and place it up there, and then Shift D to duplicate. Place it down there, and there we have a window. So very cool like effect here. Move it out so it's even. There's our little window casting light through. So say you had like a, you know, this was all indoors. You can use this to sort of emulate what it would look like with the sun outside. Of course, you could actually, you know, you could change this into a sunlight and maybe get, depending on your desired look. Of course, it's going to be very bright and our sun is facing straight down, but this might actually be better. So it just depends. I mean, you can do the same thing, and maybe we want that and we want the sun and the area light. It's all rotated weird again. Grab it. Not gonna get it perfect here, but oh, get in there. There we go. Not being super accurate, but we can do both. We can have kind of like a ambient glow to the window, but also casting those hard shadows, you know, from that window into our room here. So yeah, let's leave our sun. Let's get rid of our weird wall here. I know I said we were making, going to make a table or a chair. So let's do that. Let's make our chair. And I've gone over lights. I'm very easily sidetracked in Blender. I'm not quite sure, you know, I guess as I run into things, I'll try to explain them. I don't quite have a structured direction to carry to kind of carry the course, or just a spew of knowledge. So we can add in our cube, another cube. Getting close here. Let's make a quick chair. So I'm just going to kind of talk about what I'm doing as I'm making it, and yeah, so I guess I can show you one way to do it, and then I'll show you the proper way to do it, I guess. So there is an easy way to do this. Like I made the wall, you can make this, you can make, you know, say this is the seat of our chair, and then we want to make our legs. We'll duplicate that one and scale it, and maybe scale it on the Z and make a leg, and we'll match it up here. So there's one leg. can check our different angles. So right and front, we want this leg to be over here. We want to duplicate this leg and move it along the Y so it's lined up perfectly. You can select both of those. Box select, so that's just left click and hold down, just like you would on with files or anything. We can Shift D, and on the X, move them over. So there are definitely packs out there, and a lot of people will sell like digital models online. But you know, they can cost money, so you know, making them all from scratch is a good practice, but not necessarily. You know, in a real like development team, if you were doing a big animation, you know, somebody's sole job would be to make these models, and then they would pass those models on to a material editor or a UV editor, so they would make the actual like the colors and everything to go on that model, and then they would send it off to a, you know, an animator. So you'd typically, you know, you'd have somebody to do every different role. But in this, there are definitely some packs and add-ons that you can get that have a lot of this stuff, or you can go online to somewhere like a website I like to use is Turbo Squid. Kind of a funny name, but let's see what's on here. They have a whole bunch of random stuff. There's a dragon. A lot of these they do have so cool anatomy models, some other characters. There's an earth, but can sort by free on here, and there's still 23,000 free models. There's some COVID vaccines. There's an iPhone 12, so that one's pretty cool. That's not free though. Some of them are not organized free, but no, it's okay. It's great to have somebody asking questions. It's awesome. There's a Bitcoin. Should we get the Bitcoin? Let's get the Bitcoin. We will download the Bitcoin. I'll show you. I'll have to log in. 1 second. I do want to get the Bitcoin. We can put the Bitcoin on our chair. So this website is typically where I will get stuff. Oh no, where'd it go? Where'd the Bitcoin go? It looks so cool. Bitcoin. I'm gonna get distracted, but I wanted that Bitcoin. There's a lot of Bitcoins. Yeah, I know, right? I wish we could. Where'd it go? There's actually quite a lot on there. What? Go back, Turbo Squid. There we go. 3D models. Price. Free. It's gone. No, there it is. I found it. Download. And so, like a lot of times, this is a good place to start if you want to kind of learn how the models are built. But what you usually look for is what's called an FBX file. FBX files are the file format for most 3D objects. There are different ones. OBJ. What else is there? Show others. OBJ and FBX, 3DS files, or 3DS files. Max files. Those are for 3DS Max. There's a lot, but FBX is usually pretty well supported. So what we'd want to do is, now I've got this file, we go to File, Import, and you can see all your different options. Not all of these are actually like 3D models, but we want to import FBX. And then in the window that comes up, you have to find your model. Oh, whoops. Hold on 1 second. Gotta make sure it's in the right place. There we go. Okay. So let me do that again. File, import, FBX, downloads. There it is. So there's our file. Make this smaller. You can see that it finds it or sees it automatically if it's the right file format. And you have a few different options down here. Most of these should be fine. I don't think it has any animations, so we don't need that. Yeah, let's try this. See how it goes. So we hit import. Should be somewhere, I think. Maybe. Is it tiny? It might. Oh, it's very tiny. There it is. It's absolutely teeny tiny. So let's how many pieces is it? It's weird that it's not showing up in my collection up here, but we can grab it. I grab the whole plane. Why is it so small? Okay, now I have it. It's kind of a weird there we go. Big Bitcoin, there it is. In all its glory. I don't know why it's kind of a, its origins are all weird. Oh wow. So this was not made in Blender, I can tell you that much. All these lines are references to, for some reason it's anyways, it's you can definitely import stuff. So no, you don't necessarily have to make everything from scratch. Buy Bitcoin. I don't know why it's like linked to my cube here. There we go. Well, now I want my floor. There. Okay. So yes, yeah, definitely can import stuff. But it's fun to make stuff from scratch too. So we continue our chair here. There you go. There's a chair in all its glory. As easy as that. And then we can render our chair. We can go into our walk mode here. Get in a good spot. Zoom in. There it is. So what I was doing there is hitting Q, so you can actually set quick favorites. So like that walk mode that I was talking about for moving the camera around. You can right click this, excuse me, and you can assign. So like say I wanted fly navigation on there, I can add it to my quick menu, and then if I hit Q, then it's there. So you can do that for pretty much everything. I think all these you can, yeah, add to quick favorites. Add to quick favorites, which is really cool. It's essentially just like making your own, hotkey. So now I can walk around, set up my camera, and then render the beautiful, beautiful chair. There it is. So you can do it this way, but there is a better way, and that's called edit mode. So let's get rid of this chair because it's not optimal. Actually, before I do, you can see that this chair is made up of so many different objects. These are all different objects, and there's really no reason for that. We should make this all one object, and that's where edit mode comes in. We can combine these, but that's too easy. We got to make it from scratch. So when I add in a cube and I hit tab on the keyboard, you'll see this kind of, actually I don't think this happens by default. Let me show you how to change this real quick, because I don't think that's the default function. I may have changed that. Preference. Where was it? Input, navigation, key mapping. Here it is. Oh no, you can definitely do animation in this for sure. I'll show you real quick. Cubes over here. See this? Here's our timeline, so I can play this. Nothing's happening. Cubes over here. I hit I. That's my insert. I can insert all these different things. So these are all the different things that are all the different attributes that are associated to this cube. So I just want to take its location because that's all I want in the key. You can actually see in here, these turned yellow. So it's locked that keyframe, and you see a little diamond was added here. I'll go to frame, let's go to 120. I'm going to grab it, I'm going to move it over here. I'm going to hit I again and add in location. And then it's magically going to move to that other location. And then if we set our end frame to 120, so we start at frame 1 and we end at frame 120, we'll go. And it's going. And it's going to jump back and go again. So there, yeah, animation. Of course, it gets much more complicated than that. I can actually make a loop here for us. See, it's going to go. There we go. Moving cube. Just there. So yeah, it's a full CG pipeline. You can do yeah, tweening. That's exactly what it is. Or interpolated frames. There's a few different ways, few different names for that process. Interpolation, I think, is more popular in the more popular phrase used in 3D animation, because you're interpolating the frames between the set points that you give. You can actually see when it's interpolating frames that these numbers turn green over here. So we have the yellow keyframes and then green. I guess you can't see it live. You can see it when I scrub the timeline, but you can't see it live, unfortunately. See yellow and then green. So yeah. And then we can just easily select those keyframes, hit X to delete. You can also use the delete key, but X is usually closer to where my hand sits at, so X is faster. But yeah, now we have our cube and it's lost its animation because I deleted the keyframes. So you can key every one of these different attributes, scale, rotation, everything. I can make it spin really quick, really easily. So rotation, maybe we'll go to frame 30, we'll hit R, we'll hit Z, so it only spins on the X axis, and then we'll do 360. So it's gonna spin all the way around. Hit I, key in that rotation. You can see, here it goes, it's gonna spin. And then we can bring this down to frame 30, and then it should loop, spin, spin. So what you're seeing when it slows down is that interpolation that you're talking about, or the tweening effect. We can fix that by just selecting these, and you can see Interpolation Mode. So there's the word for you. And then instead of doing, right now it's at the Bezier, which is sort of, it smooths out. You can see it like starts off slow, and then it speeds up, and then it slows down, speeds up, slows down, in between the loop. But if we take this and we just turn it to linear, it's not gonna like try to interpolate between anything. It's just gonna go straight to where it's supposed to go. So now it's gonna look like it just continuously spins. There's a little bit of a loop because we technically have two. We technically have two of the same keyframes, so you can kind of see it stop and start. So we just got rid of that, and now we should see it spin seamlessly. Yep, ease in, ease out. Yep, same concept. All with all done with the curves, and I'll give you a little sneak peek of the graph editor. Kind of visualizes it a little better, but it's a little complicated. But you can actually see here how, if I select these and turn this back into Bezier, you can actually see here's the handles. It's gonna mess it up all weird, but I can move the handles around and really make this cube very upset. It's not a happy cube. But yeah, I'll get into animation at some point on here. I definitely would like to cover that in the future. because it is fun. I love animation. Let's turn this back to timeline. We don't need it to spin anymore because I don't want our chair spinning on us while we're trying to make it. So where was I here? Oops. Control Z back into what I didn't want. Delete keyframes. I'm going to reset my location, my rotation. So a lot of times when you're making an object, you want to try to keep these, particularly the scale at 1, like all zeroed out. It's not really zeroed out for the scale, but you want it to look like this. You can move it around and rotate and stuff, but if you're like making an object for like a game engine, you want to make sure all these are all zeroed out. You can actually set those. So say I took this and I moved it over here and I rotated this, and I wanted to keep these settings, you can actually lock these in. So you go to apply and you apply all you apply all of the transforms. And now it's zeroed out, but it's in a weird spot. And you can see that the origin of the object, which is this little orange dot, moved. This is not good. You wouldn't want, like, it would be weird to try to import this into a game engine or something, because it's just, if you wanted this cube to lay flat on the floor, it would come into the game engine like this, and you would have to rotate it and try to rotate it, and it rotates from the origin. So it's like this weird, you have to like really finagle it back to, the objects. It doesn't rotate right because the origin's not in the right spot. Yeah, it's a mess. You wouldn't want to do that. So let me undo, hopefully. There we go. So reset, everything's good. Origin's in the very center. That's 0, 0, 0 on every axis. So before you set the default setting for its position, or you want set the default setting for its position when. Yeah, you can set it whenever you want. Is that what you mean? Yeah, I mean you can move things around and set it, but what I recommend is using edit mode. So this is what I was talking about with the chair. Like, we had a whole bunch of different objects with all their each one of those objects had a different origin, which is where it rotates. So yeah, you can set it however you want. But I would definitely recommend trying to keep your origin of your object for that singular object, at least when you're making these objects, in the center like this. So what I'm going to do is go back to that menu we saw, so the tab menu with all these scary modes on it. But what we want here is the edit mode. So right now you'll see when I grab this, see that orange dot, it moves with the object. I'm moving it around based on its origin point. But if we go into edit mode, see all of a sudden I get a bunch of other orange dots, and if I grab this and move it, that orange dot in the center doesn't come with this. We're actually editing the mesh and not the object. So the mesh is just like, it's kind of almost like a separate thing. Then you can see that our transforms aren't changing over here. They're all staying at 0. So now that we're in this mode and we grab it and move it up and scale it and we can do all the same things, make our cube or make our chair. We can do that in here as well. But as you can see, like, there's something different going on where we have these little points, and I can select each of these points, and these are your vertices. So you have vertices, you have lines. If I grab these, I can move these individually. So your vertice, line, grab it, move it around, and then you have a face. You can see it nicely highlights it for you. So I can actually move these all individual of the other. You can scale these. You can rotate these. Of course, it gets a little weird. You can have a face that is only 3 sides as well. But for the most part, you want to try to stick with what are called quads, and that's the 4-sided faces, and avoid tris, which are the 3-sided faces, as much as possible. It's mostly for just keeping your models clean, I guess. Because imagine if we selected this, we can actually, I think we can triangulate. Select. Let's see, edge face. Yeah, triangulate faces. So now every face has a triangle, and it's a little bit more difficult to edit things. It doesn't quite edit as nicely. Triangulated meshes are much more difficult to edit. Quads are a lot nicer and cleaner. And then if there's like a game engine or something that needs things to be triangulated, which some do, most do, I think. Some game engines will like convert your meshes to triangulated meshes. But as we're working on them and actually building them, keeping them in quads is good. Is fine. Just as good. So yeah, we can move these around. We can hit L on the keyboard, and that selects all the linked vertices to that vertice. So I hover over whatever vertice I want and hit L. So now I've got both these pieces selected. They're separate. Grab, move that piece. Click off, grab that piece. Oop, there it goes. You can hit A on your keyboard, which is all. The key shortcuts are great in Blender. I feel like it's definitely one of my favorite like key shortcuts of any program because they all make sense. You know, they all have some name that fits with them. It's very like well thought out keyboard shortcuts. You know, A to select all. Double tap A unselects everything. Actually, yeah, let it go away because it thinks I'm pressing it a ton. So if I hit it again, it's gonna keep selecting everything. But if I double tap it fast, it unselects everything. So I've got my leg here. I can make another leg. Shift D to duplicate. That's a pretty standard hotkey. I think that most applications use that. See, I'm doing very terribly on my legs here, but that's okay. I'll show you something else here. Did I miss one? I did. Shift D. There we go. So we got a stool first. So for the back of the chair, I want to do something a little different. I want to actually divide this cube that we've got up here, this six-sided object, to have multiple sides, so we can actually extrude another part of this object, actually change its shape entirely. So with Control and R, you can see it brings up this little yellow line. I could do it on here on one of the legs as well. What this is doing is creating a loop cut, and a loop cut essentially is adding more geometry to your object here. So I can click and then I can drag this back and forth to where I want it. So what I want to do is move it back so that I can have another face right here. You see I can select this and I've got a whole nother face right there, and I can grab this and move this around. And I've also got another face here as well. I can grab that and move that around, or like bring this in. It's going to be a very ugly chair. But it's going to be a chair. Might not be comfortable, but so I've selected that face, and now I can hit E to extrude, and I can make the back of the chair. And there we go. There's the back of the chair. Maybe I want to like scale this in. There. It's a very rickety chair, but it works. So I've just like, this is still all the same mesh. This part here. It's all one linked piece. So if I hit L on there, it select the whole thing. If I selected L on here, it select that one leg. So the legs are separate, which is totally fine. You can build a mesh like this. This works. Now if I tab and go back into, object mode, you can see that our chair up here, you can rename these as well. Chair. Our chair is one object. And there it is. We can rotate this all nice. So if we say we had like a table here, we can actually duplicate these chairs. Now we have two of the same. So it's a lot easier than having a bunch of different objects to create one object. It's better to have your objects contained like this so that we can make multiple of them. So like say we wanted to make a little outdoor seating arrangement. So let's make a table real quick. Let's actually go for a circle. Then, so I added a circle, but what I want to do, so when circles come in, for some reason, they actually have no face. There's no like mesh there. It's just the line, and those don't render. Without any mesh, your object doesn't have without a flat surface, without those quads or tris, it has nothing to tell Blender that this is a solid surface and needs to be like rendered to the camera. So down here, when you add objects, any object, I think, yeah, so they all have this little menu that shows up. It's very easy to miss because the minute that you grab it and move it around, it will change and pretty much go away. You lose some of those settings. It's kind of a strange thing. This was definitely a little, like I said, it's easy to miss here. You can see like this has a whole bunch of settings, but if I grab it and move it, they all go away. So right after you add something, that menu comes up and you can, oops, not a torus. I want a circle. And you have a few different options here. And what I want to do is actually fill this with a triangle fan. So you can see all of a sudden it's now solid. And maybe I'll knock down the vertices, so which are the edge loops. So you can see I'm making like a, it goes all the way from a triangle to whatever a circle with, whatever a shape with. There's octagon. We can do maybe 12. 12 looks good. But you can see I can move this over here. Actually, I don't want to do that. I just broke my own rule. I don't want to move that object, that origin point. So I want to tab and go into edit mode, and you can actually see it looks like a pizza. It's got all the different sides. Pizza sounds really good right now, actually. And I can scale this. This will be the top of our table. And then with all this selected, I can extrude on the Z. And now it's got, we've added some thickness to it. And there it is. Maybe I'll make it a little thinner. There we go. And maybe we want to do just one leg for this table. I'm going to duplicate this, hit Z to lock it to the Z axis, scale it down, SZ to scale it on the Z, up to make the base part of the table, or the leg. Maybe this is one of those like park ones that just kind of like sits cemented into the floor. There we go. Sweet, there's our little table. Now we can go into object mode and see now we can move it around with the origin and scale it to, if we wanted to scale it. We can also just go into edit mode and scale it here, which would probably be better. That doesn't look like they have much leg room. Maybe I want my chairs to be a little shorter. We'll make our table taller. We'd have to go back through the chairs because I didn't actually make them as instances, which is instances we would be able to edit one and it would change all the other ones, which is super useful, but it's a little bit more advanced. Our leg table is definitely well concreted into the ground. But yeah, so there's a little scene right there. A little table and chairs. Get our camera here. We'll walk around here. Maybe we'll go where we can have some nice shadows. There it is. And we want to make our floor here a little bigger. I guess that's how we can make our table not look as tall. Bring that up. There. Cool. Well, there's our little scene. We can hit F12 to render. Yeah, all right, scale it out. There we go. Nice gray table and chairs. Not too exciting on the color end, but we can change that real quick. Can't steal the table, exactly. We could cement the chairs in place as well if we bring the floor up and then all the legs stick through. You just have to kind of sit where they are. So yeah, let's add some color to our little chair and table scene here because it's very gray right now. The first thing I'm going to do I want to change some settings in like the world. It's probably the quickest way to like change your whole like aesthetic of your scene, I guess. I almost always do this with all my scenes. And that is to come into this little tab right here. This is your like world properties. I mean, it is your world properties. It's not like your world properties. It is your world properties. And here you can see you have this color. Like I was talking about, the background's this gray. This is actually like what the color of the world is. And this actually will change the color of your scene. The more I bring this up, you can see the lighter this is going to get until it's like totally white light, very bright background. But you can see the background has changed. I could bring this down a little bit, you know, kind of soften those shadows so it's not as dark. You can actually add a kind of a tint to this. So I feel like this is almost a better way to add a tint to your scene instead of using the sun to change the color. Just because it's a little more, it kind of adds it over your whole scene instead of just like to the light source. You know, that way you don't have to match up every light source you have, but like a nice blue tint. But to up this even more, Blender has some built-in like sky textures that add even more variation to your sky and a little bit more ambient light, which is really great. So I'm not going to get too far into nodes, but basically if you click this little yellow button here, you can attach something to this color. So you have like, you can attach textures and things like that and other colors, different ways of mixing colors. But what we want to add is a sky texture. And so what this is going to do is kind of give us the ability to control some more specific things about our scene. You can actually like change like sun rotation and things. I don't usually use these. I'm not quite sure honestly how they work. But like I think there's a sun in this scene. I haven't quite mastered this particular one. I don't usually use this one. There are others. So in our modes here, you can change it. I like this one because it kind of gives you a nice like gradient in your sky. You kind of have like this lower sort of color going on, and it's just nice. You can change that by moving this little orb around, which it kind of gets weird, but you know, it's a matter of preference. I like this one, and turning it down a tad bit, maybe like 0.5 is pretty nice. This kind of adds some weird effects to your scene. 1.9. These are fairly new. I haven't had a chance to really mess with them. I just know that I like this first option. Oh, this one's kind of weird. This is very similar. Kind of like that one too, actually. This needs a little bit more strength. Yeah, let's use that one. That one's not bad. Grab our sun here and move it out of the way so it's not so in our scene. So yeah, there's a little bit of nicer light, not as like dark. Kind of already adds some color to our scene. So if we go to our camera, we can already see that that's much better. Much better. Cool. So the basics of adding materials to your objects is pretty easy. Once you have something selected, you go down to, so like I was saying, every one of these objects, everything is context sensitive. Depending on what you select, you get different menus. So of course, like every object has different settings. Up here you can see. But going down to this materials properties is where you're going to be able to change what materials on your mesh. So here we can add a new material. So we hit the new material button and we can call this chair because it's going to be our chair color. And then easy as just changing the base color right here, we've given this chair some color. So maybe we'll do like a brownish, light brownish. So yeah, you can change some basic things. This principal DSBF surface, this node, which is kind of complicated. We'll get into that at a later point. You could do, you know, hours of tutorials on node-based materials. When I mean node-based, I mean that they can, like, you essentially build a tree of nodes. Where's our shader editor? There we go. You can actually see it here. And all of these you can pull out and plug things into these different settings. But we're not gonna mess with that right now because it is also quite complicated. So I'm gonna put that away, hide that. But we can have most of the settings we need right here. Yeah. So just, I guess, to demonstrate, like we did with the sky, you can also do it here. You can go to your surface color and you can add, say, a checkered texture. And although we actually have to do one more thing, I will do this real quick. This is probably gonna look okay. I won't explain too much, so I'm just gonna Smart UV project. Oh, what did I do? There we go. Yep, I just added a texture to it. Now it's got a texture. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward to change. Oh, I did surface color. Whoops. That's why it didn't work. Remove. There we go. Yeah, this is where you do all your textures and everything as well. So what I was doing before was practically just giving it a color. I wasn't plugging any textures. It was just giving it a color value. But then you can also make it more or less specular. So how shiny it is. So you can see it's like, that's rough and shiny. I guess it's not really rough and shiny because there is a roughness setting. So down here, roughness, if I bring that up, it's going to get more rough, I guess. Bringing it down will make it less rough until it's almost reflective. If we had more on our scene, you might be able to actually see the metallic is actually what makes things like, oh, well, we have a setting here that we need to turn on, I think. Yeah. So now you can actually see the reflections of the table. You can sort of see it right there in the chair. So it's a very shiny chair, which is not what we were really going for. We'll mess with these settings later. These are all just viewport settings. Of course, like, the reflections don't work without this turned on. But we don't want a metallic chair. We don't want a very specular chair. We want, like, sort of a weird wood color. So we'll leave it at that. We'll leave the roughness. There we go. Okay, so there's our chairs. Then we can go around and click each of these and go to, oh, there's a whole bunch of textures. Where are all these from? Weird. Gold. Not quite sure where those are from. Typically, when you do this, there are no textures. I think it might be from one of the add-ons I have. I have a architectural add-on that may have added all these textures. But as you can see, we can go through and go to this little drop down and add the chair material to each of our chairs. And we're set. Now they're all the same color. We could add the chair material to our table too, but let's change the chair material. So with this here, we can actually add a we can make a copy of this by hitting that little number button, and it adds that number to it. And now it's not the same. Like, I can change this to a lighter brown. I like those. Maybe I'll do a red for the table and make the chairs a different color. There we go. So yeah, those are all linked. So I can just change one and it changes. So. Oh yeah, definitely. You can spend hours on materials for sure. It is an art in and of itself. So with our base color here, so now we have our table, but say like we wanted the leg here to be a different color. we can do that too. So we can actually add multiple materials to one object, excuse me, with the plus button. So now we have a second material. We have another material slot, I should say. So we could do new here to add it in. So there's our second color. We can change this, but you can see that like I can change it all I want, but nothing's going to happen because I have to tell Blender what vertices or what faces I want to be that color. So in here, all I have to do is tab and go back into edit mode that we were in before. And I should fix this while we're here. I can grab these. I'm just going to grab these vertices and move them up so they're not so much in the floor. So here is an instance where, okay, I put them in the floor on purpose because now we want to see what the wireframe mode is for. So you can see now I have I have an X-ray vision. I can see these vertices down here. So if I needed to select, these, I could do that. I could select them straight through the floor, and I can actually see them before, I couldn't see them here. I don't think I can. You can select them. They're just, you can't really tell where anything is. So with the wireframe mode, it gives you that ability to select things through other things. So now I have that selected. Go back into material preview. So I've selected that's the part that I want to change the color of. So over here you can see there's a assign, select, and deselect. So all I got to do is hit assign, and there it goes. It changes. So now back in object mode, now that it's assigned, I can change the color, and it's going to change. Maybe I'll make that a little darker. There we go. Beautiful. So there is our chairs and table with some color. Sweet. Last thing, let's add some color to the floor. Let's do some grass. It's gonna be very flat grass, but it'll look nice. That kind of matches. I like the kind of this. I think this this sky has a little bit of like a fog to it. It's making it kind of look hazy like that. Maybe we'll adjust that, turn that down a little bit. Maybe I'll go back to this one. Ooh. That seems even more kind of foggy. That one doesn't seem as foggy. It does have a lot more settings. I'll have to mess with these more. They're very useful. They're definitely a good way to get nice color in your scene a lot quicker. This one's a little bit more flat, but I still like it. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of materials. Super easy to come in and assign. I can see that our grass here is very, very shiny. So maybe I'll add the roughness in here. There we go. A very like low poly scene. But you can see that this you can actually see the edges on this, which is kind of the look we're going for. But say you wanted this to be smooth, you can actually right click the object. Oops, right click it and shade smooth. You see that kind of disappears. See how this is more like, looks more rounded than it was before. But you can toggle that on and off. Maybe for our like shell shaded look, we'll keep it at flat or kind of low poly look. So yeah, what time are we getting at? We're pretty close. Okay. I said this would be a shorter one, but yeah, we can totally soften the edges. I guess one thing I'll show you real quick. Okay. We're going to make another chair with a different technique, and this is going to be the more advanced technique. I'm going to do some things that I'm not going to like totally explain, but just to show you what is possible. So let's take our whole scene here, slide them on down. Okay. I'm going to add in a new cube, and actually, well, I can show you something else real quick. So I'm going to select this, and I'm actually going to push H, and that hides all those things. You can see over here that these eyes turned off. So now all that's left is my cube that I just brought in. So here's our chair. So chairs are symmetrical, right? Most of them are. A generic dining chair is usually pretty symmetrical. So we can use a few tools here to help us with its symmetry, and save us some effort. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, let's see, I guess I'll start with the seat of the chair. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so edit mode. I have these vertices. I'm not really a big fan of working straight from a box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit M. Yes, this is definitely my more preferable way. I'd say, I mean, the more using more of the tools to actually to your advantage, because there's a lot of things that would help us to make their chair look a lot better. So I'm going to hit M and merge all these together. So now I have one vertex. You can barely see it, little orange dot. And what I'm going to do is go from the top, and I'm going to drag this vertex up. I'm going to put it, let's say like right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude, hit E, and extrude this vertex. And you can see that I can pull it out, and I can kind of do a design for a chair. So let's say we want it to be like kind of more rounded in the back. But I want this to kind of match up better, and I want this to be symmetrical, because of course, like most, chairs are going to be kind of symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is add what's called a modifier. I'm going to go over these pretty quick, because I'm going to eventually I'll go through them more. But what we're going to use is a mirror modifier, and as you can see already, it's added in a reflection of this mesh that we have, and you can see I can turn on what's called clipping, and this is going to stick to the center part. So if I can't move this off this axis. So the y-axis is kind of locked that vertex there. Kind of looks like a shield actually. But maybe I'll make this back part a little flatter. Let's see what's a good shape for a chair. Maybe like that. I'm going to draw in some more vertices for myself, so that I can then select these like 4 vertices and hit fill or F on the keyboard. It's another easy one to remember. Fill. Select all 4. F to fill. Select all 4. F to fill. There we go. So now we have this flat plane that's symmetrical. I select all this, hit G, or not G, hit E and Z. It's going to scale it out on the X and make us a little flat surface for our seat that is more a little more geometry than what we had before. So I'm going to leave this at that for now, and then maybe my next part will be the back of the chair. Let's do the back of the chair. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to make any extra vertices this time that I don't need. I'm just going to have the back part of the chair kind of come out of, kind of float there, sort of like we did the legs for the last one. So I'm actually going to duplicate this square. You see now I have another version of this quad here, and I'm going to extrude it up, and that's made another cube for us. I'm actually going to come in, and with 1, 2, and 3 on your keyboard, like not the numpad, but the actual like numbers on the top of your keyboard, those change your selection mode. So you can see I can go from vertice selection to line selection to face selection. I'm going to take this face selection tool, select this bottom face, X, and delete faces. So now you can see there's a hole in this mesh. I did that because we don't really need this face there. It's saving a little bit of space in our mesh. We don't need that extra geometry there, because what we're going to do is we're going to go back into vertex selection mode, grab this and stick it right there, so that it's kind of like sitting in the inside of the chair, so it's like it's part like sticking out or like fixed to that part of the chair. Then I'm gonna extrude these. Maybe I'll grab these a little bit. I'm gonna go. So I hit Z there, and Z brings up your different display modes. So like I can go into wireframe, which is what I wanted to do. And another reason why I go into wireframe is you saw me select this, like box select this before, and it did not select that vertice behind the mesh because it only selects what it can see. But in wireframe mode, you can select all of them. So maybe I'll give this. Gonna rotate these, grab it. There we go. Let's do that. And so now we've created kind of a back. So maybe I don't like that so much. Maybe it's a little too wide. I can use what's called the proportional editing tool, which is a great tool. It's O is a shortcut, or you can toggle it on up here. What this does essentially is it takes, you can actually see it in action. It takes the vertices and kind of adds like a fall off to it. So you can sort of move. So like if I grab this without this on, it would just be like that. With it on, it kind of moves some of the other vertices with it, which is exactly what I want, because I kind of want to reshape this without like having to move every single vertice. So I can grab this and maybe move it on the X, and I can use the scroll wheel to scroll it up. Maybe I want to bring this in just a tad bit so that it's not as wide. I want to keep a general shape, but I don't want it to be as wide. There we go. So with that, we can go back into, hit Z, back into rendered or solid. It's a little easier to see. And then we can actually going to add the back part of this chair now. So we can select this. Oop. Make sure I'm not selecting my seat. Some noisy roommates. Bring this out. So I duplicated that for only this piece because I want to add this like interior piece. I'm going to select this, rotate it on the Z. Whoops. I had to turn off proportional editing because when I rotated it, it moved everything else. I just wanted to move this part. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to scale it a little bit. Maybe I want a little bit more definition in here. There we go. Go on our side view. So we can kind of see now like our side view is kind of weird. So that's why it's good to check all your, whoops. Good to check all your angles. Maybe we want this to like lean back a little bit. Let's move these back. Grab these. There. Now if we look at this in solid view, let's see we have kind of a cool like backing to our chair now. A little different than our chairs before. Maybe we want, grab this one, move it back. Oops. So I want to like select this edge loop. Yeah, it's kind of like a group tool. Yeah. It definitely, it's more for like bigger edits. It's not so much for the fine stuff. What I'm doing is holding Shift and Alt at the same time and clicking the line here. There'll be very particular where you select, and that selects that loop. That's loop selection mode. Then I can move this back. Kind of line these up. There we go. That looks good. You definitely want to try like when you're doing, at least when you're doing low poly stuff like this, and even when you're blocking out your models in the beginning, keeping it as simple as possible is good. So now let's do some legs. Oh yeah, definitely. So this is just like, those other methods were just really quick. This of course is like, you could really get intricate with this. I mean, you could add, you can keep duplicating these and add like little swirly pieces in here, or like, some really fine details if you really wanted to. I'm going to do something a little different for the legs. You see, I went back into object mode because I want to add another cube. I want to go into edit mode. I want to grab this. Actually, I'm going to hide my, we're going to actually combine, kind of do a combination of the first two methods. I guess I have a combination of the first two methods because there's a certain thing that I want to use to make the chair legs. So object mode, I'm going to hide this piece of the chair. I'm going to go back into edit mode. If it lets me, edit mode. Scale. So I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. M on the keyboard, scale, or to merge at center. And grab it and move it up on the Z. And then what I'm going to do is kind of draw, think of it kind of like pottery. I'm going to draw sort of the silhouette of the chair leg that I want. So I'm going to grab, oops. I'm going to grab this edge because I don't want it. I'll show you here when we go to do it, but I'm going to kind of draw, yeah, like a silhouette of the leg that I want to use. So maybe I add like a little lip here, maybe some more pieces. And go down and around. I don't think our table leg needs to be this intricate, but it will be good. So then I want to bring it in so that that's flat. And then so here's my silhouette for my table or my chair leg. Maybe it's a bit too tall, but we can fix that. So back in our modifiers, I'm going to use another one real quick called the spin. Where's it at? Spin. Screw. There it is. And look at that, like magic. The chair leg. So essentially what that does is it takes that silhouette that you've given it and spins it around in a circle. So you can see like the angle is 360. So I can bring this back and open it up. See, now it's only like half, but we want to keep it at 360 because our table leg is that way. We want to do maybe, let's see. Yes, very cool. It's a neat tool. I really like this tool. You can do some cool stuff with it. You can change the amount of steps. So since we're doing low poly, 5 looks actually really good. The shading's a little bit weird, but will fix that as well. Now that looks like a pretty solid chair leg. Yeah. So let's go ahead and to apply this, we have to be in object mode. We can hit apply, and then if we go back in edit mode, you can see now I have controls. So, or I have all the vertices. I can see them here. I actually want to shade this flat because before it was shaded smooth. So there's the leg right there. Pretty cool. Now we want to add this to our chair. So let's bring our chair back. There's our chair. Oh, it's actually very small. So that's the thing with scale. Like you kind of gotta work with it. But so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna move this around and scale it and fit it in here. And actually, let's do it to the other side because we only actually need to add in 2 chair legs for the one side because it's going to mirror it across the other side when we add it to this object. Blender 2008, so 13 years probably. Yeah, it's been a long time. And I'm definitely far from being a master at it. But it is a goal I strive to a goal I strive to meet one day. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, yeah, now that I've got my table legs where I want them, but I've only put the 2 because we're already mirroring this side. So really, when we edit this, see how I can only edit this one side, but we want these to be mirrored to the other side. So what we want to do is add these to this object. So we can hit, yeah, Control J, adds it together. See, it already appeared. We can do this for the same for this one. Control J, there it is. Now it's all one object. Now we have 2 chair legs, and we can go edit, and there they are, right in there. Maybe we need some supports between them. Let's add some supports real quick. You can actually add, you can use Shift A to add objects into your current mesh, which don't actually add new objects. They just add the mesh itself. So, you know, I wanted to make a bracket in between here, and it's on the wrong side. Wait, oh, it's on the front. Oh, we're looking at the front, so we want to bring this out. See how like I can't bring it past that axis because I have it clipped together, so it won't go past that. But here I can use this to add some. See, but the only thing is we have a face inside here, and we don't want an inside face. So I'm going to go in, and I'm going to go back into our face select, and I'm going to shift click those and delete those faces. That's better. We don't need these either. Shift select faces. I think they're, yeah, that's good. Okay. And now we want to go into line mode, and I'm going to scale these 2 on the Z, and that's actually going to scale them on the Z out toward out away from each other. Yes, this is going to be a very fancy chair. I'll bring this in. There we go. If we had a 3D printer, we could print this chair out, which would be really cool. I wish we had a 3D printer. Maybe that's for a future MARZ investment. You can see, I think that I flipped it around though. So see how like this is the editable part on this side, but then I flipped it to the other side, which is fine, but probably not a good practice. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to turn off clipping for now and grab this and make sure I'm in front view, rotate, and I want to go 180 degrees because I'm flipping it completely around. I'm going to switch sides, and then I'm going to turn clipping back on and bring it out so that it kind of grabs onto it, and then I can kind of position it back in place. There we go. Then I want this to be the same on the back side. Make sure these are lined up. There we go. And the back legs are closer together. So I'm going to grab and move this on the X. There we go. And then let's do one more support thingy. I'm going to duplicate this. Whoops, I got to turn off clipping so that I can actually move it away. There we go. I can turn the clipping back on. Rotate 90 degrees. Whoops. Okay, this maybe we'll put it up here. Be a good spot between these two, like. Oops. So these aren't actually going to be 90 degrees because they're a little bit wider. I'm just going to grab this and bring it all the way across to see where we need to put it. So grab on the Z. There we go. Yeah. Hey. We add some. So I scrolled up on that. So I used the Control R, and then I use a scroll wheel to add multiple loop cuts. And then I can scale. I'm gonna use what's called normal scaling, which is Alt S. It's a little bit different than regular scaling. It gives you a different result. So this is regular scaling. You see, it just scales in every direction. This is normal scaling. Normal scaling, think of it kind of like inflating rather than just like making bigger, I guess. I don't know. So it's kind of it's kind of hard to explain exactly what it does, but yeah. Well, there's a chair. Maybe let's do one more quick thing. I'm going to turn on our proportional editing tool. I'm going to give it a little bit of a divot here in the center to sit, so it's more comfortable to sit in. Maybe I want this to come back a bit. Maybe we'll do more straight. There we go. I like that better. So I love the proportional editing tool. It is a great one to use. You can actually really shape something more. Even though our you know, we've kind of messed our legs up, we can still stylize it. Yeah. It's kind of leaning a little bit too far back, but we can get it bigger. There. What I'm going to do actually is, now that it's done, I'm going to grab the whole thing. I'm going to move it and set it kind of more like it would be on the ground, because our origin point is right there, right in the center there. So that's a better spot for it. And there's the chair. Now we can give it the chair texture and see what it looks like in our world here. We got to turn everything back on. So Alt H is to unhide everything. So there's our scene. We moved everything down. Grab it and bring it back up. And our chair here is a little smaller than the other chairs, so we can scale this up. So there's one very fancy chair and a few not so fancy chairs. But you can see the difference between like using some of the built-in tools versus like you know, just doing it by hand. So we can delete our old chairs and add in some of the new fancy chairs. Shift D. So I'm going to use top-down mode since I'm like moving things around. Yeah, you're gonna take that. You're gonna take the nice chair, and everybody else gets the square ones. Very uncomfortable stone slabs of chairs. Maybe we'll take one of these chairs and we'll lay it on the side. There we go, like somebody pushed it over. I don't think it would sit like that, maybe. So double tapping R also rotates it in an interesting way. It's almost like a it unlocks it from the unlocks it from kind of the view. It's a little weird, but it can be useful in sometimes. Let's see, how would this work? You'd be like that. It's okay if it clips into the ground a little bit. There. Oh no, somebody got upset and knocked the chair over. And there's our new scene. So fancy. Maybe we should redo our framing here since our chair is on the floor. And it feels like it's a little washed out, so maybe I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Ooh. 0.3. That's not bad. Render. And there's our new art piece. Fancy chairs and circle table. So yeah, cool. I think this is I've definitely gone longer than I expected to. But typically these streams run about 2 hours, so I should probably cut myself off before I go deep into the Blender rabbit hole, which I definitely would. But yeah. Let's go back to, let's see. So yeah, cool, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us and or myself me, myself, and I today on the MARZ stream. Next week, I don't know what we're doing. I think it's gonna be some music stuff, maybe. I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to Corey about what our plans are. We're in the middle of moving our office space, so that's been an adventure. That's why I'm here at home doing these streams. But he'll be back next week, and hopefully we'll have some new and exciting things for you guys to learn. And yeah, awesome, cool. Well, thanks again for joining, and I appreciate all the comments in the chat and the activity there. It's always nice to be able to talk to people while we're live. So awesome. Well, yeah, come see us again at Thursday at 5 o'clock. We'll be here every week. Try not to miss a week. So catch you guys next time. See ya.